The night rain poured down, beating against the cold glass curtain walls of the city. Lin Wanzhou dragged her exhausted body and pushed open the door of the apartment building. Completely soaked, working overtime until 2 in the morning, with the client demanding last. Minute changes again, she hadn't had a good night's sleep in 2 consecutive weeks. "Damn, this rain," she muttered, shaking her wet long hair and heading toward the elevator. The moment the elevator doors opened, a strange scent carrying wildness and pine hit her face. Lin Wanzhou paused. It was a scent that had never appeared in this old apartment building. It didn't smell like cologne. It was more like a beast soaked in moonlight deep in the forest. She shook her head and laughed at herself. She must be too tired and hallucinating. She pressed the button for the 12th floor, and the elevator slowly ascended. Just as the doors were about to close, a large hand suddenly held the gap open. "Wait." A low, hoarse male voice with suppressed pressure sounded. Lin Wanzhou looked up and saw a tall figure squeeze in. The man had an excellent build beneath the black trench coat. Tight muscle lines were faintly visible. His wet, short hair clung to his forehead, covering half of his brow, but the exposed half of his face had sharp, almost fierce contours. What made her heart skip a beat the most were his eyes in the dim elevator light. They showed an abnormal, deep amber color. Lin Wanzhou subconsciously moved toward the corner. The man seemed to notice her tension and slightly turned sideways, making space with his wet shoulder. "Sorry," his voice was very low, rolling out from deep in his chest. "I live on the top floor." Top floor. Lin Wanzhou remembered that floor had been an empty duplex for a long time, rumored to have been bought by a rarely seen wealthy man. The air grew increasingly thick. The pine mixed with wild scent became stronger, as if silently declaring dominance. Lin Wanzhou's breathing unconsciously followed that rhythm, her heartbeat inexplicably accelerating. She secretly glanced at the man's hand, well-defined knuckles, but his fingertips were trembling slightly, as if trying hard to restrain something. The elevator dinged and stopped at the 12th floor. Lin Wanzhou quickly walked out. Behind her came an extremely soft sigh from the man. That sigh carried long-suppressed loneliness, like a wolf chained for years finally smelling, on this rainy night, a scent that could heal its wounds. She returned to her small single apartment, locked the door, her heart still pounding. While taking off her wet clothes to shower, she suddenly noticed a faint trace of his scent on her wrist. Moonlight spilled through the gap in the curtains. Tonight was a full moon. Lin Wanzhou stood under the shower, letting hot water rinse her skin, but she couldn't wash away the faint pine scent on her wrist. It felt alive, trembling slightly with the water flow, as if those amber eyes were still watching her from the shadows. "It must be an illusion," she whispered to herself, turning off the faucet and wrapping herself in a towel. The mirror reflected her slightly pale face with faint dark circles, the aftermath of continuous overtime. She was the planning director at an advertising company, 28 years old, independent and capable, but also exhausted. Her parents had passed away early, and her only relative was abroad. She had long learned to lock all emotions deep in her heart. The stranger from tonight was just a brief interlude on a rainy night. After drying her hair, she walked into the small living room and casually opened the refrigerator. It was empty, with only an expired carton of milk and a few slices of bread. Sighing, she poured a cup of hot water, curled up on the sofa, and opened her laptop to revise tomorrow's proposal. Outside the window, the rain gradually eased, but the moonlight grew brighter. Meanwhile, in the top floor duplex apartment, Lu Tingyuan stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows, his tall figure stretched long by the moonlight. He had taken off his soaked trench coat and wore only a black shirt, the collar casually opened, revealing old scars below the collarbone. That scent belonging to her still lingered on his fingertips, fresh, with a faint citrus and rainwater feminine scent, like a long-awaited ray of moonlight quietly seeping into his wolf soul chained for years. "Damn," he cursed softly, his fingertips trembling slightly. The full moon was approaching, and his beastly nature was stirring, but she, that woman who shrank into the corner in the elevator, was like the destined antidote. He closed his eyes, nostrils flaring, as if he could still smell the fragrance of her wet hair. The clan betrayal 3 years ago had made him completely shut himself off. The top floor apartment became his cage. He rarely went out, only occasionally going downstairs late at night for air. Tonight was supposed to be a routine check, but he encountered her in the elevator. Lin Wanzhou. He had already found out her name, the apartment registration information, was pathetically simple. Lu Tingyuan's Adam's apple bobbed as he suppressed the low growl about to escape his throat. He couldn't get close to her. He knew what his existence meant for ordinary people: danger, secrets, endless pursuit. But that scent was like a warm fire, slowly melting the ice in his chest. Down on the 12th floor, Lin Wanzhou rubbed her temples. She got stuck halfway through revising the proposal. She got up to pour more water and, passing the balcony, a night breeze blew in, gently swaying the curtains. She suddenly stopped. On the balcony, a small bunch of white wildflowers had appeared at some point, covered in raindrops and emitting a crisp fragrance under the moonlight. A note was pressed beside the bouquet with strong, powerful handwriting. "Sorry for scaring you, neighbor." Lin Wanzhou's heart skipped a heavy beat. She subconsciously touched her wrist. That pine scent seemed to have grown stronger. How did he get in? The door was locked from inside, and the balcony was on the 12th floor. A strange palpitation rose from the bottom of her heart. She brought the bouquet inside and smelled it. In the floral fragrance was a very faint, wild scent belonging to him. At that moment, she suddenly felt tonight's moonlight was exceptionally gentle. Meanwhile, on the top floor, Lu Tingyuan retracted his leaping figure and landed on his own balcony. His chest was still heaving violently. He had completed the round trip in less than 10 seconds, moving as lightly as a shadow. He leaned against the wall, palm pressed against his heart. There, a steady and warm beat was coming, something he had never experienced before. "Lin Wanzhou," he murmured her name, his voice hoarse like a whisper. The wolf's instinct roared, "She is yours." But reason warned, "Stay away from her, or you will destroy her." Downstairs, Lin Wanzhou put the bouquet in a water cup, and the corners of her mouth unconsciously lifted slightly. She sat back on the sofa. The proposal no longer seemed so difficult. Outside the window, a cloud drifted by, and the full moon fully emerged. Lu Tingyuan's eyes lit up with a deeper amber in the darkness. He turned and walked toward the study, where there was a screenshot of her from the surveillance her side profile in the elevator. He reached out and gently stroked the screen. "Just this once," he told himself. "Confirm she is safe, and I won't approach again." But he himself knew how powerless those words were. Lin Wanzhou had a shallow sleep that night. The bunch of white wildflowers sat on the bedside table. The petals curled slightly in the morning light, but still carried last night's crisp fragrance. Mixed within was the pine wild scent, like an invisible thread gently wrapping around her thoughts. She got up, rubbing her sore shoulders, habitually brewing a cup of black coffee. The self in the mirror still had greenish eye circles, but the softness at the corners of her mouth was more obvious than usual. "Just a neighbor," she reminded herself in a low voice, yet her tone carried an uncertainty even she found unfamiliar. On the way to work, the city was washed bright by last night's rain. Lin Wanzhou squeezed into the subway, her wrist accidentally brushing the handrail, and that scent seemed awakened again. She subconsciously lifted her wrist to smell it, then shook her head self-mockingly. It was ridiculous. The company's day was the usual, endless meetings and revisions. As planning director, she had to maintain that capable and resilient image. Colleagues praised her ability, but no one saw her exhaustion when returning to the empty apartment late at night. After her parents passed, she had learned not to rely on anyone until that rainy night. When getting off work, the sky was already dark. Lin Wanzhou carried her laptop out of the office building, and a light rain started falling quietly again. She opened her umbrella and hurried toward the subway station. Meanwhile, in the top floor apartment, Lu Tingyuan stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows, his amber eyes locked on the familiar slender figure on the street below. He hadn't been able to truly calm down all day. Her scent had taken root in his chest like a seed. The approaching full moon made his beastly nature even more restless, yet it was gently soothed by that citrus, rainwater scent. "Can't go down." He gripped the windowsill, knuckles white, but his legs moved involuntarily. He put on his black trench coat and turned into a silent shadow, leaping down from the top floor and weaving through the building shadows. Lin Wanzhou quickly walked into a slightly secluded shortcut alley, taking a shorter route to the subway. The rain covered the subtle footsteps behind her. Suddenly, a familiar pine scent surged from behind, so intense it made her heartbeat accelerate instantly. She whipped around. Lu Tingyuan stood at the alley entrance, his black trench coat wet from the rain, collar open revealing tight collarbones. His tall figure almost blocked the streetlight, those eyes flashing deep amber in the dimness. "It is you." Lin Wanzhou's voice was slightly hoarse. She subconsciously stepped back half a pace, but hit the cold, wet wall behind her. Lu Tingyuan's Adam's apple rolled. His voice was low and hoarse. "Sorry, I didn't mean to follow you. I just saw it was raining and worried you didn't have an umbrella." He raised his hand, and a large black umbrella appeared in his palm, clearly just bought from a nearby convenience store. Lin Wanzhou stared at the umbrella, then at his slightly trembling fingertips. In the air, the two scents intertwined, his wild pine and her fresh citrus, like fate quietly weaving an invisible net. She hesitated for a moment, but still took the umbrella. The instant their fingertips touched, a warm electric current surged through her skin. Lu Tingyuan's body obviously stiffened, as if desperately restraining the urge to pull her into his arms. "Thank you, neighbor," she said softly, trying to sound calm. The corner of Lu Tingyuan's lips twitched very lightly, the closest he had come to a smile in nearly 3 years. Lu Tingyuan, he gave his name, his voice so low it was almost swallowed by the rain. "You can call me Tingyuan." Lin Wanzhou looked up and met those amber eyes. Inside were loneliness, restraint, and a tenderness she couldn't understand, almost painful. He was like a wolf, abandoned by the world, yet trying hard not to scare her. Lin Wanzhou, she also gave her name. Her heartbeat was so loud it seemed he could hear it. The two walked side by side in the rainy alley. The space under the umbrella was narrow. His shoulder almost touched hers. Lu Tingyuan deliberately kept a small distance, but used his body to block most of the slanting wind and rain. "Yesterday, I scared you," he said, his tone carrying self-blame. "I rarely interact with people." Lin Wanzhou shook her head. "It is okay. It is just that your perfume scent is very special." Lu Tingyuan let out a low chuckle, the sound deep and magnetic, rolling from his chest. "It is not perfume. It is my body scent." He didn't explain further, just turned his face sideways, his gaze gently landing on her damp hair tips. When they reached the subway entrance, the rain suddenly grew heavier. Lu Tingyuan stopped, shoving the entire umbrella into her hands. "Take it, I live close by." Lin Wanzhou wanted to refuse, but he had already turned and merged into the rain curtain. His tall figure disappeared into the night in just a few steps, leaving only a lingering pine scent warmly enveloping her. Back at the apartment, Lin Wanzhou leaned the umbrella against the door. She leaned against the door panel, her chest rising and falling unevenly. The scent on her wrist, the wildflowers on the bed, the amber eyes in the rainy alley. Everything felt like a dream, yet real enough to make her panic. Meanwhile, on the top floor, Lu Tingyuan pushed open the door and leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. The full moon was only 2 days away. His wolf soul was roaring, longing to rush down and pull her into his arms, to gently mark her with his teeth and claim ownership. But he couldn't. The betrayal 3 years ago, the clan's pursuit, the uncontrollable beastly nature inside him. Any one of them could destroy her. He walked to the study and stared at the surveillance screen, Lin Wanzhou's side profile. His fingers gently traced the screen, as if stroking the real her. "Lin Wanzhou," he murmured, "just let me guard you from afar, okay?" Downstairs, Lin Wanzhou finished showering and lay in bed. She hugged the black umbrella to her chest. The handle still retained his body heat. Outside the window, the full moon gradually emerged from the clouds, silver light filling the room. She suddenly felt that the loneliness of many years seemed to have been gently touched by a strange warmth. The next day, when Lin Wanzhou woke up, she was still holding the handle of that black umbrella. Traces of rainwater on the umbrella surface, mixed with faint pine scent, like an invisible mark, quietly seeping into her daily life. She got up slower than usual. In the mirror, the dark circles under her eyes had faded a bit, but the softness at the corners of her mouth was even more obvious. She shook her head, put the umbrella away in the cabinet, but couldn't help gently stroking the handle with her fingertips. His body heat from last night still lingered there. "Just a neighbor," she reminded herself again, but found the words increasingly powerless. The company's day was busy as usual. Meetings, revisions, client urgings. Lin Wanzhou maintained her capable appearance. But during lunch break, she unconsciously opened her phone map to check routes near the apartment. When her finger stopped at the top floor, she quickly locked the screen. After work, the sky was unusually overcast. The air was filled with the stuffy dampness before rain. Lin Wanzhou quickened her pace toward the subway. Her phone vibrated. A colleague messaged, "Tonight is the full moon this month. Better head home early to avoid the rain." She smiled and was about to reply when a familiar wild pine scent suddenly surged from behind, stronger than ever. Lin Wanzhou turned sharply. Lu Tingyuan stood under the streetlight, his tall figure elongated by the dim yellow light. His black trench coat was open, revealing a dark shirt with faint sweat beads on the collarbone. His amber eyes shone even more obviously in the fading daylight, with golden halos seeming to flow at the edges of his pupils. Wanzhou. His voice was low and hoarse as he directly called her name. It is going to rain. I'll walk you home. No explanation, no politeness. He just stood there like a wolf restraining to the extreme, trying hard not to let his beastly nature show, yet unable to completely suppress that protective instinct. Lin Wanzhou's heartbeat accelerated. She noticed his fingertips trembling and his Adam's apple rolling intensely. In the air, their scents intertwined even tighter, her fresh citrus, wrapped by his wild pine, like fate quietly tightening the invisible net. Okay, she answered softly, her voice softer than imagined. The two walked side by side on the sidewalk. Lu Tingyuan deliberately stayed on the roadside, using his body to block occasional splashes from passing vehicles. His steps were steady, yet he always kept a small distance, as if afraid he might accidentally pull her into his arms. Recently, work has been busy, he started, trying to make conversation. His voice rolled from his chest with a low-frequency vibration that gave Lin Wanzhou goosebumps on her arms. Yeah, overtime is the norm, she smiled. What about you? The top-floor duplex must be very quiet. The corner of Lu Tingyuan's lips moved slightly. Quiet. For too long. One sentence revealed 3 years of solitude. Lin Wanzhou turned to look at him. The pain hidden in those amber eyes was like a wound under moonlight, making a soft spot in her heart tremble gently. When they reached the apartment building, the sky finally cracked open. Heavy raindrops fell. Lu Tingyuan quickly took off his trench coat and draped it over her head. The movement was swift yet gentle. The instant his fingertips brushed her hair tips, a current-like warmth reached straight to her heart. Go up, he said in a low voice, but his tone carried a suppressed tremor. Lin Wanzhou looked up and met his eyes. As the full moon slowly emerged from the clouds, silver light spilled on his face, turning the amber instantly bright and almost eerie. Lu Tingyuan's breathing grew heavy, his chest heaving noticeably. He stepped back half a pace as if fighting something intensely. Tingyuan, are you okay? She asked worriedly, subconsciously stepping forward. This step suddenly shortened the distance between them. His scent completely enveloped her, intense pine, wild heat, masculine scent mixed with rainwater. Lin Wanzhou suddenly felt her body go soft, her heartbeat strangely syncing with his rhythm. A very low, almost whimpering growl escaped Lu Tingyuan's throat. He abruptly turned his face away, palm pressing against his chest, knuckles white. Go back, lock the door. His voice was hoarse to the point of breaking. Tonight, don't come out. With that, he turned and strode away, his back appearing especially lonely in the rain curtain. His tall figure disappeared into the building shadows in a few steps, leaving only a lingering, scalding scent. Lin Wanzhou stood in place, her heart pounding wildly. She touched the hair covered by his trench coat. It was full of his scent. Back in her 12th floor apartment, she locked the door but couldn't calm down. Outside the window, the full moon hung high, silver light filling the room. She hugged his trench coat to her chest. The fabric still carried his body heat. Meanwhile, on the top floor, Lu Tingyuan leaned against the floor-to-ceiling window, breathing heavily. Moonlight pierced his skin like silver blades. His eyes had completely turned deep amber, with violent golden halos. Dark wolf patterns faintly emerged on his arms. Can't get close to her, he gritted his teeth, fingertips digging into his palms. Scenes of the clan's betrayal 3 years ago flashed through his mind: blood, betrayal, endless pursuit. There was also a more dangerous scent belonging to hostile forces. He had faintly smelled it on the nearby streets tonight. He couldn't drag her into this. But his wolf soul roared, she is the destined mate. That scent, that heartbeat, that warmth that can heal all wounds. She is yours. Lu Tingyuan let out a low roar and punched the wall, leaving a shallow dent. He turned to look at the surveillance screen. Lin Wanzhou was hugging his trench coat to her chest, her cheeks slightly flushed. At that moment, his restraint almost collapsed. Downstairs, Lin Wanzhou lay in bed, unable to sleep. Under the full moon's silver light, the scent on her wrist seemed to pulse gently, as if responding to something. Outside the window, a long, low wolf howl came faintly on the night wind, distant, yet striking straight to the heart. Lin Wanzhou tossed and turned in bed, The full moon's silver light filtered through the curtain gaps like a thin veil, enveloping the entire room. The black umbrella and trench coat sat by the bed. The pine scent mixed with rainwater grew increasingly strong, as if coming alive. She finally sat up, her chest tight. The low, long wolf howl from outside seemed to still echo, in her ears not an illusion, but real enough to unsettle her. "Tonight, don't come out," Lu Tingyuan's hoarse voice repeated in her mind. She put on a coat and walked to the balcony. The night wind carried coolness, but couldn't dispel the strange palpitation inside her body. At her wrist, that trace of his scent pulsed like a heartbeat, strangely syncing with hers. Meanwhile, the top-floor duplex had become a battlefield. Lu Tingyuan knelt before the floor, to ceiling windows, sweat sliding down his tense muscles. Moonlight cut into his skin like silver blades. His eyes had completely turned burning amber, gold wolf patterns appearing and disappearing on his arms. He suppressed low growls in his throat, fingertips embedded in the floor, leaving cracks. "Can't go down." He gritted his teeth, his voice broken. Betrayal scenes from 3 years ago surged like a tide. But even stronger was her scent, that fresh citrus, rainwater scent, like the only antidote that could calm his beastly nature. He suddenly stood up and pushed open the balcony door. In the instant, he leaped down, his trench coat spread in the air like a black shadow sweeping across the night sky. Lin Wanzhou stood on the 12th floor balcony, about to go back inside when an overwhelmingly intense pine wild scent pressed down from above. She looked up and saw a tall figure descending from the sky, landing lightly on her balcony railing. "Lu Tingyuan," she exclaimed, stepping back half a pace, but was steadily caught by his swift, yet gentle arm. The temperature of his fingertips was shockingly hot, like a branding iron, yet carrying a strange, soothing power. Lu Tingyuan's breathing was heavy, his chest heaving violently. His wet black shirt clung to his body, outlining tight muscle lines. Those amber gold eyes flashed under the full moon. Pupils narrowed into slits, but softened slowly when looking at her. "Wanzhou, stay away." His voice was extremely hoarse, almost inhuman, carrying pain suppressed to the extreme. "I can't control it." But his body did the opposite. His arm pulled her a little closer with slight force. His nostrils flared as he greedily inhaled her scent, like a drowning man clutching the last straw. Lin Wanzhou did not retreat. She felt the trembling in his palm, not fear, but extreme restraint and longing. He was like an injured wolf, struggling in pain under the full moon, yet still trying to protect her. "Tingyuan, are you sick? Do you need help?" she asked softly, her hand unconsciously covering his arm. The touch was scalding hot, with power surging under the skin. This touch was like lighting a fuse. A low whimper escaped Lu Tingyuan's throat. He suddenly pulled her into his arms. His tall body completely enveloped her. The pine wild scent surged like a tide. Her face pressed against his chest, hearing his wild heartbeat powerful, strong, yet carrying lonely pain. "Your scent," he murmured, his voice hoarse and magnetic, chin gently resting on her hair. "It calms me, yet drives me crazy." Lin Wanzhou's body went soft, but she didn't push him away. The exhaustion and loneliness of many years strangely dissolved in this embrace. She smelled the mix of rainwater, pine, and faint blood on him. The blood scent tightened her heart. "Your hand is bleeding," she exclaimed, trying to check his palm. Lu Tingyuan quickly tightened his arms instead, pressing her hand against his chest. There, the heartbeat was syncing with hers. "Don't look, the full moon makes me a bit out of control," he said with difficulty, revealing part of the truth. His amber eyes lowered, lashes casting shadows in the moonlight. "But I won't hurt you, never." In the air, their scents completely merged. Her fresh citrus soothed his beastly nature. His wild pine wrapped her like warmth, filling the void in her heart. Suddenly, subtle but unusual movement came from the street below. Another hostile wolf, like scent, flashed by. Lu Tingyuan's body instantly tensed. He growled lowly, shielding Lin Wanzhou behind him, his gaze sharply scanning the night. "Someone is coming." His voice was low, carrying a warning. Lin Wanzhou's heartbeat accelerated. She grabbed his clothes, her fingertips felt the tension in his muscles. Under the moonlight, his figure seemed taller than usual, with a faint wolf silhouette flickering behind him. "Tingyuan, what exactly are you?" she asked softly. There was no fear in her voice, only curiosity and heartache. Lu Tingyuan turned his head, his amber, gold eyes gazing deeply at her. His fingertips gently brushed her cheek, the movement tender and almost reverent. "A lonely soul that needs your healing," he answered in a low voice, carrying fateful tension. In the distance, The hostile scent gradually approached. Lu Tingyuan's wolf patterns became more obvious. He gritted his teeth and gently pushed her back inside. "Lock the door. Wait for me." With that, he leaped off the balcony and merged into the night as a black shadow. He left only a lingering warm pine scent and a few drops of his blood on the windowsill glowing faintly under the moonlight. Lin Wanzhou stood inside the room, her heart pounding. She picked up that drop of blood. Her fingertips felt a strange burning heat. Tonight's full moon was no longer just silver light, but the beginning of a fateful turning point. Lin Wanzhou stood on the balcony, her heart drumming. The few glowing drops of blood on the windowsill gradually faded under the full moon, leaving only scorching residual heat. She gripped that drop tightly. Her fingertips felt a strange pulse, as if hearing Lu Tingyuan's suppressed low growl from his chest. "Tingyuan," she murmured, grabbing her coat and rushing out of the apartment. In the elevator, that pine scent still lingered, so intense it made her breathing tight. Down on the street, night wind carried the smell of rain. Lin Wanzhou ran toward the depths of the small alley, following her instinct. Faint sounds of impacts and beast, like roars, came from there. Lu Tingyuan had already half transformed into wolf form. His tall figure moved in the shadows, muscles tense, amber, gold eyes flashing with killing intent. Before him stood two men in black, emitting hostile, decaying wolf scents. They were the clan pursuers who had betrayed him 3 years ago. "Lu Tingyuan, you've hidden long enough," one sneered. "Hand over the moon soul crystal, and we'll leave you a whole corpse." Lu Tingyuan rolled out a warning growl from his throat, claws extending. "Get lost. Don't come near here." His voice had turned beastly hoarse, yet he still tried hard to restrain himself, not wanting to alarm nearby residents, especially her. The fight erupted instantly. Lu Tingyuan moved like a shadow, fists and claws clashing, blood splattering. The two opponents coordinated well. One entangled him while the other tried to circle toward the apartment. Lin Wanzhou had just reached the alley entrance when she saw this scene. She was stunned but did not run. That man who sent her an umbrella on a rainy night and gently embraced her under the full moon was now bleeding to protect her. "Stop," she shouted, her voice trembling but firm. Lu Tingyuan whipped his head around. Horror flashed in his amber eyes. "Wanzhou, go." In that moment of distraction, an opponent clawed his shoulder, blood spraying. Lin Wanzhou's heart felt torn. She rushed forward, picked up a broken piece of wood from the ground, and smashed it hard at the attacker. "Don't touch him." At that moment, her citrus scent completely covered the battlefield. Lu Tingyuan's wolf soul was injected with a warm current. His beastly nature surged, but with unprecedented clarity. He roared lowly, counterattacked, and sent the enemy flying. The other was also deterred by the aura of him protecting her behind him. "She is my mate," Lu Tingyuan declared in a low voice, with unquestionable authority. He pulled Lin Wanzhou into his arms. His tall body completely shielded her. Scalding blood drops fell on her shoulder but brought strange reassurance. The pursuers sneered and retreated, entreating, "On the full moon night, you actually found your destined one. We'll come back with reinforcements." Their figures quickly disappeared into the night. Lu Tingyuan's body swayed. He forced himself to carry Lin Wanzhou back to the apartment. The moment the door closed, he knelt on the ground, wolf patterns fluctuating violently. "I am sorry for dragging you into this," he said hoarsely, amber eyes lowered, full of pain. Lin Wanzhou knelt beside him, her palm gently pressing his wound. The blood was warm but miraculously stopped under her touch. She felt the power under his skin and the loneliness suppressed for 3 years. "Tell me the truth," she said softly, her voice gentle yet firm. "I don't want to face empty nights alone anymore." Lu Tingyuan's Adam's apple rolled. He pulled her into his arms. The wild pine scent and fresh citrus completely merged. He lowered his head, forehead against hers, voice like a whisper. "I'm an alpha werewolf, betrayed, lonely for too long. Your scent can heal me." The two embraced under the moonlight. Lin Wanzhou's fingers gently combed his short hair, feeling his heartbeat gradually steady. The exhaustion of many years vanished in this embrace. The next morning, sunlight spilled into the 12th floor apartment. When Lin Wanzhou woke up, she found herself in Lu Tingyuan's arms. His wounds had mostly healed, leaving only faint pink marks. His tall body completely surrounded her. His breathing was even and warm. She looked up and met those deep amber eyes that had returned to normal. Inside was no longer just restraint, but completely open tenderness. "Good morning, Wanzhou." His voice was low and magnetic. His fingertips gently stroked her cheek, the movement reverent as if treating a treasure. The two prepared breakfast side by side. Lu Tingyuan's movements were clumsy but earnest. Lin Wanzhou smiled as she taught him how to cut vegetables. The kitchen was filled with the sweet scent of intertwined pine and citrus. Years of loneliness were quietly filled by daily healing. Those people will come again, Lu Tingyuan said seriously. I can't let you take risks. Lin Wanzhou held his hand. We'll face it together. I am not a fragile flower that needs protection. I am someone who can stand by your side. In the following days, the two faced external threats together. Lu Tingyuan taught her the secrets of the werewolf world. Lin Wanzhou used her resilience and wisdom to help him resolve clan grudges. Small conflicts gradually escalated into the final protection battle. Under another full moon, Lu Tingyuan fought the pursuers to the death. Lin Wanzhou used her scent to stabilize his beastly nature, and together they repelled the enemies. After the crisis, Lu Tingyuan knelt on one knee in the top-floor duplex, holding a moon soul crystal in his palm, a token symbolizing eternal bond. Lin Wanzhou, are you willing to accept this lonely alpha? Let me guard you for a lifetime. Lin Wanzhou's eyes grew moist. She nodded and threw herself into his arms. I am willing. From the rainy night in the elevator, you have already become my destiny. The two shared a deep kiss, the pine and citrus scents completely fused. Outside the window, the moonlight gently spilled down like a blessing for this unexpected true love. Epilogue. Half a year later, Lin Wanzhou resigned from her high-pressure job and built a small house with Lu Tingyuan on the edge of the city. There were forests and moonlight. She occasionally worked overtime, but he was always quietly guarding at the elevator entrance, alley end, or balcony. The lonely alpha was completely healed, and the resilient heroine found her home. The threads of fate tightly bound the two together.